All right, so when I start drawing, I need to go ahead and make sure that I have a sharp pencil. I need to make sure I have a little bit of a kneaded eraser, right? As I mentioned earlier, I want to make sure that I'm happy with what I've drawn. This is kind of my last best chance to make any changes. And I also want to go ahead and erase these kind of grid marks. I'm even going to erase some of the marks that exist in the kind of immediate surrounding of where the mouth is. It's also worth mentioning that if you're not done with this kind of area right above the mouth, that you may want to wait before you get started. We want to be working from adjacent area to adjacent area around the face as a way to make judgments and good decisions about what's happening. So we're just going to erase a little bit. Okay. So the edge of the mouth is soft, right? And that just means that this line right here is going to be kind of a shaded edge, right? That this line right here is not going to look like the inside edge of our nostril, which is a kind of tangible, holdable edge. So when I want to start shading this lip, when I want to start establishing where it's at, I'm going to do so by shading and not by using the tip of my pencil to draw. I'm looking for where values change, right? And I'm always doing that. Moving from where I'm at to the area just right next door and asking myself, well, how is it different? Okay. If I struggle to see how those differences are occurring, I want to use those little paper punches as a tool to help me identify what's happening with value. Okay. I always want to think about shape first, value next, and then the last thing that I want to be thinking about is texture. And texture, again, is something that we work on both additively by adding graphite to the paper and subtractively by removing graphite. Okay. The upper lip is generally darker than the lower lip, and the outer corners, again, are going to be darker than the center. The edge here in the center where the two lips touch, the top and the bottom, that is going to be a clean line. And so I'm going to use the tip of my pencil to actually kind of draw the line in versus shading it. Whenever you have a clean edge, you have value that pulls off of that edge in one direction or the other. And so I can see that from that clean edge going up is the shadow. Right? We don't want there to be any outlining of the face. Once I start to get the values laid in a little bit, I can start using cross contour lines to help me apply the value and begin to think about what's happening with texture. Like the eyelashes, the texture lines in the mouth create like a parenthesis, right? So on the bottom, I see that the texture lines go this way on the left, and they go this way on the right. And on the top lip, they do the same thing. They go this way, and they go this way, right? So the texture lines kind of create that parenthesis shape that frames the information in the center. And they're curved because you're never gonna find a straight line on a round object, right? It's always gonna bend with the contour of the form. So I can start shading, and I can work with these kind of cross contour lines, rolling my pencil around what would be the shape of the lip. If there's any mark to the way I apply then the graphite, it will be in agreement with the contour of the form. So it'll automatically start to suggest what's happening in terms of texture and in terms of form. And I can start on the bottom lips too. I'm going to want my pencil to be sharp, always. And you can see that I'm using those kind of rounded lines. The top lip and the bottom lip don't necessarily have to line up. For me, her top lip comes out farther and kind of bumps into the corner, and her bottom lip has a slightly different angle as it kind of comes out. Makes it just feel like her lips are really fuller. If I'm drawing sideways, which would be nice, I would probably see that better. Below here, I do see that her lip is full enough that it does kind of overlap her face on the bottom. Not all the way across the bottom edge, but just through the center here. And so I want to make sure that I have a clean line. And in that case, the value pulls off that edge going down. Again, we don't want to have any areas where we are using an outline to establish the facial features, right? None of us have black outlines on our face. And the outlines are gonna run counter to whatever you're trying to do with value, which is to make it look 3D. I can take my kneaded eraser. It's probably my best tool for making really subtle changes in value. Little changes that are kind of harder to achieve with just a pencil. And I can use the electric eraser also. The electric eraser is going to, especially for the top lip, it's going to create too much contrast right off the bat. So I'm going to have to do a combination of adding value, subtracting value off, and then kind of knocking down the really light values. So I'm just thinking about like drawing little lines, and I can see those little lines in my photograph. And so I'm just drawing them. The electric eraser is also impacted by pressure. So I'm touching it really, really lightly to the paper because I want to have kind of control over how much, or in this case, how little of the material it takes off. Right, and I can kind of just knock them down. Right? You're gonna oftentimes see a little highlight along the top. I'm only gonna be able to add that in if I have that kind of widow's peak area shaded. And again, I might find that I have to go back in and kind of reduce the contrast so that that doesn't look so dramatic. Right? And then I'm just gonna keep working on her face.